Hey everybody, Devout Nation here again with another video for you. Today I want to highlight a video with Dr. Turek, who debates an atheist. And what I want to highlight in this video is when I watch debates like this or discussions, it always seems to be a common theme that the person that's a theist is usually calm, collected, is willing to discuss the hard topics of believing Christianity, and the atheists or agnostics, as soon as they reach a point that they just don't like, they usually get angry, yell, or just storm out. And in this particular video, this gentleman storms out. So I want to talk about that and follow it through to the end, and I will have my final thoughts on it for you guys. So let's dive in.
I feel like this talk's kind of going to have engendered a lot of confusion because there's a lot of things I noticed, and forgive me, I spoke out earlier.
It's all right.
There's a lot of things that you did in this talk, in this presentation. You kind of gish-galloped over a bunch of things, and there's a lot of logical fallacies. I don't want to address all of them. I can't. I know you've got a limited amount of time. The biggest problem I noticed is you mentioned a few times, and kind of disparagingly, this idea of an atheistic worldview, and then you attack that. That's a great straw man because atheism is not a worldview. And I know that you've been made aware of this because you've had debates with other people to this effect. So I would...
Okay, what do you mean by worldview?
Well, that's what I would like to ask you. Atheism is just the rejection of the claim of theism, which tells you nothing about how that person thinks about social rules, who they want to vote for, whether they like cake more than they like pie. It's not a worldview. Atheism is simply saying God is not guilty of existing. It's not the same thing as saying God does not exist. Now, there are atheists who do that. They're strong atheists, or we call them Gnostic atheists. But atheism is just a rejection of the claim of God existing.
Okay, let me...
I actually agree with his point here. I don't believe that atheism itself is a worldview. It is just simply the belief that God does not exist. It's like atheist literally means no God. So I agree with his point here, and it started off pretty friendly. And when somebody comes to me with these topics, when I do my TikTok lives, like, I fully accept the fact of what he's saying, that it doesn't, being an atheist does not set his moral standard. But the issue with that is he can't ground his moral compass. He can't ground his moral objectivity. They will then say that things are right or wrong, but since he can't ground it in a God, then it's just completely subjective to him, and who's to say anybody else is wrong. But his point to me is valid, that atheism does not project your worldview. So I just wanted to point that out.
Let me ask you a question about this, Scott. Here's the proposition. God exists. Do you agree with that proposition? Do you disagree with that proposition, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay, so you're an agnostic.
Well, agnosticism addresses knowledge, right?
So you don't know.
Theism addresses a belief claim. So I would be agnostic atheist. I do not know that God does or does not exist, but I do not believe that he does.
Okay, well, you still believe that you don't know whether God exists, so it's still a belief.
It's a lack of belief.
No, you believe that it's true that you don't know that God exists.
And your point is?
Okay, well, my point is that atheists today are trying to say, I have a lack of belief in God. For me, that's just saying something about your psychological state. It doesn't say anything about the real world out there. It doesn't say whether or not God exists. You're simply saying, I lack a belief in God.
Sure.
Well, this water bottle lacks a belief in God, but we
Water
don't
bottle
follow...
doesn't have the capacity to believe.
Right, I know.
You addressed this with Cosmic Skeptic, like in 2017.
Yeah. Okay, but the audience
refuted.
doesn't know this, so just give me a chance
You
to
guys should
answer.
check that out. That's
Okay.
pretty good.
If we define atheism as a lack of belief in God or whatever,
Sure.
then we're not really saying anything, because everything that doesn't have the capacity to believe anything called an atheist then.
And a water bottle could also be called a vegan if you say it's something that doesn't eat animal parts. As far as that label is being applied, it's ineffective in that case. I would say atheism is related only to those things that have the capacity to believe in the first place.
And I actually agree with him here, too. I don't like the argument that Dr. Turek used here, saying that the water bottle is then an atheist because it doesn't believe in a God. And he brings up a good point. You could apply any label to that water bottle and say it doesn't, it doesn't eat animal parts, so therefore it's not a vegan. So at the beginning of this clip, I like the challenges that this man, I believe his name is Scott, brought up to Dr. Turek. But once he reaches a wall that we're about to come up to, he just can't handle it, and he starts getting less friendly and then eventually walks out. But I just wanted to point out that so far, like, I agree with the points that he's making. He's making very valid points, and you can tell that he's done his research on how Dr. Turek answers these questions and comes back with the rebuttal that he's been doing so far, which is a valid rebuttal to give. So let's just see how Dr. Turek responds.
We can argue over definitions all day long. When I'm debating an atheist, whether it's Christopher Hitchens, Michael Shermer, Jeffrey Lauder, whoever it is,
Sure.
When we set up a debate, I say, let's debate this. What better explains reality, theism or atheism? Or if you want to call atheism materialism, whatever you want to call it.
But the point is, theism is not trying to explain reality.
Yes, we are.
No, that's not what it is doing. And I'm telling you, as an atheist, that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is, you are coming to me and you're saying, hey, God explains X, Y, and Z. And I'm saying, well, how do you know that? Why do you know that? And convince me of that.
Okay, let me finish my point, Scott.
Sure.
Okay? When two people come to debate on this issue, I'm going to say, when I look at reality around me, when I look at the creation of the universe, or the fact that the universe exists, the fine-tuning, objective moral values, when I look at what appears to be design in life and where life came from, when I look at consciousness and free will, and the laws of logic and our ability to reason, I think anybody coming onto a debate stage has to give causes for why those things exist.
No, they only have to show that your arguments are correct. Or
No. When you frame the debate the way we frame it, what better explains reality? Reality includes all those things I just mentioned. Then I have the burden of proof to say I think these things are best explained by theism. And the atheist has the burden of proof to say, okay, I see those things exist. Here's my explanation for why they exist.
But then I don't believe any atheist that I've ever seen debate with you has ever accepted a debate under that kind of framework. The framework is never that
Scott,
atheism is a better explanation. It's that your theism is not a sufficient explanation.
You'll have to talk to them, Scott, because they agreed every time. Christopher Hitchens.
You guys should check out the videos on YouTube.
Yes,
That's not
Michael
what happened.
Shermer. Oh, okay, just so you know. What did you say, Scott? I was lying?
Yes. You say you were lying.
I'll be happy to, if you give me your email address, I will send you a video of all those debates. You can watch them. Okay, well.
So this is the part where I find that it gets a little ridiculous. Is every debate has a debate topic, and he's saying that if he frames it as in what better explains reality, is it theism or is it atheism? He is right. He brings the burden of truth that theism better explains reality, and he gives his examples. That leaves the burden of proof on to the atheist to say, I don't think what you're saying is right. This is my explanation. That is how debates go. Like that's just how debates work. And once he was confronted with this, he immediately calls Dr. Turek a liar because he says that's not the framework that was given. I would think the person in the debate would know the framework that was given. So instead of trying to answer his question, he got pushed up against a wall to where he couldn't explain a better point of what better explains reality? So he just walks out. And to me, that's a bit of a cop out. That's a bit of a, you know, it's just it shows like a sign of weakness in your own belief, because if you can't accept the fact that us as Christians have a belief system that we believe is what created all life and what it explains reality, explains existence, and we have evidence for it with the Gospels, Old Testament, New Testament, Shroud of Turin, Greek manuscripts, other writings that corroborate Jesus' story. We have all of these things that that is evidence that leads us to believe that this story is true. This story explains the reality. This story explains the creation of life. If you can't bring anything to the debate table, and you just walk out, you immediately lose that debate. Like, hands down. There's no question about it that you cannot provide a better explanation. Therefore, you basically you forfeit the debate. But Dr. Turek also brings up another really good point, and then I'll close out with my closing statement.
Well, those were the titles of the debates. And the reason we do that, ladies and gentlemen, is because let me put it this way, it's easy to smell a rotten egg, it's hard to lay a better one. Okay? So if someone has a position over there that I think is wrong, I can throw eggs at it, and I can try and diffuse and say that's a bad argument, that's a bad argument. But I then still have the burden of proof to say, well, what is my explanation for the way things are the way they are? Let me give you one last illustration, because this is an important point that Scott brought up. If I'm a detective and atheist Michael Shermer is a detective, and we come on a dead body, and I say, okay, I'm looking at all the evidence here, I think candidate X did it. And Michael Shermer says, no, candidate X did it, or didn't do it. That's the wrong, he's not the murderer. And I say, okay, who is the murderer then? And he says, well, I just lack a belief that your guy's the murderer. Is he a good detective? No. Shooting down my suspect isn't enough. If he's a good detective, he has to give reasons as to why candidate Y is the murderer, not just to say that your guy is the wrong guy. That's all I'm saying, Scott.
And that's a very good point that he closed on, and that's basically the title of the framework of the debate, right? Is that analogy he uses with being a detective. So just use that framework to the debate that Dr. Turek has been in, and it proves it or explains it very, very well, saying that there are two detectives, one body, and one person says, I think person X did it. Here's my evidence for it. And then the second detective being like, nah, he just didn't do it. And then you're like, okay, why do you think that? Nah. And then walk out. Like, you completely forfeit the debate. You completely forfeit everything. If you cannot give a better reason or some sort of belief, faith, or scientific experiment or anything to counter what the person of faith is saying, then you just automatically lose. So I wanted to highlight Dr. Turek because he's another person that I watch a lot of. Cliff and Dr. Turek are both amazing. His YouTube channel is called Cross-Examined. I highly recommend checking him out. He also has a book. I think it's titled It's Harder to Believe in Atheism or something like that, or There's Not Enough Evidence to Be an Atheist or something like that. I bought it. It is a great book, especially if you're on the fence between being an atheist and a theist. It's a very good book about some of the hard things that you have to accept if you believe in atheism to your core. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, leave a follow, drop a comment. I always respond. And as always, bless you all, and I will see you on the next one.